His name was Alex. He worked in logistics. Not the kind of guy you'd expect to find sipping cocktails on a cruise ship. But after 10 years with his company, they gave him a reward. A 2-week solo cruise aboard a brand new ship, the Halberd Star, sailing through the North Atlantic. He texted me a photo the morning he boarded, wearing a knit cap, holding a glass of wine on the windy deck, grinning like a kid. Cold as hell, he wrote, but free booze and no emails. I'll take it. That was the last time I heard from him. A week later, I got the call. Not from Alex, from the cruise line. The woman on the phone sounded rehearsed, polite, detached. Your brother has not been located on board since the morning of June 14th, she said. He failed to check in at scheduled meal times and did not respond to cabin service. They filed him as missing at sea. Did he fall overboard? I asked. There is no recorded footage of your brother on deck during the night, she said, pausing. We can't confirm that. It didn't make sense. Alex wasn't depressed. He wasn't reckless. And according to their own security logs, he was last seen entering an elevator around 11:20 p.m. with a takeout bag in his hand. The elevator descended and never came back up. I pushed for the footage. Of course, they refused. But I knew someone. A friend of mine used to work on ships. He sent me schematics of the Halberd Star. There were 8 passenger decks, dining, pools, theaters, all standard. But the elevator log said Alex went to deck 0. That deck doesn't exist, not publicly. I started asking questions. Most of the crew refused to talk. Either they didn't want trouble or they genuinely didn't know. But one woman, a former stewardess named Lynn, responded to my messages, said she quit after that very cruise. When I asked her about deck 0, she wrote, "It's not officially listed. They use it when the ship's full. Overflow cabins, no windows. Smells like mold and bleach. Most of us hated going down there." She told me she remembered Alex, said he'd been reassigned to cabin 08 a few days into the trip, though no one knew why. Cabin changes weren't common unless someone complained, but Alex hadn't filed any complaints. He was quiet, she said, friendly, said he liked the quiet. I asked her what she meant by overflow cabins. They're smaller, bare walls. Some of them used to be storage, and there's this feeling like the air doesn't move right. I managed to reach one of the engineers who'd worked on the Halberd Star during construction. He confirmed it. Deck 0 was originally meant for crew storage and emergency berthing. But at the last minute, they converted part of it into economy cabins to increase passenger capacity. There's no daylight, no soundproofing, poor ventilation, he told me. They weren't designed for comfort. So why was my brother moved there? The cruise line's official report listed his cabin as 510 throughout the voyage. No mention of Z08. No explanation for the elevator log showing a descent to an unlisted floor. They claimed he most likely went out on the observation deck and fell. But his key card never registered another exit after 11:20 p.m. Something wasn't right. I dug deeper. Through an online forum for maritime workers, I found rumors. Crew who'd heard whispers of deck below 0, where the lights flickered and the walls dripped condensation, where guests sometimes complained of voices in the pipes, always at night. A steward claimed he found wet footprints leading from an empty cabin on that level. Another mentioned waking up to see someone standing at the end of his bunk, in a place where no one else had access. All of it could be made up, of course. Internet ghost stories. But I couldn't shake the feeling, especially after what arrived in the mail. 2 weeks after the investigation was closed, I got a small envelope with no return address. Inside was a flash drive. It contained one video. The timestamp said June 14, 11:42 p.m. A dim corridor, metal walls. The camera was shaky, probably a phone. I recognized Alex's voice, steady, low. Cabin Z08, he said. They moved me here. Said there was a plumbing issue upstairs. This place, It's not right. He moved through the corridor. At one point, he passed a door with no number, just a rusted circle where a number should have been. He paused. "There's no one else here," he whispered, and I keep hearing. A sharp knock. The video froze. It resumed 5 seconds later. He was inside the cabin. Small, claustrophobic. A bed, a desk, no windows. He panned the camera toward the bathroom, where the door was slowly swinging open. "Someone was in there," he said. The clip ended. The cruise line denied any knowledge of the video, said the cabin number wasn't real, that they had no record of any reassignment. But I'd seen the footage. I'd heard his voice. He was scared. I went public. Reddit, Twitter, anywhere someone might have answers. A few days later, a message landed in my inbox. No name, no profile. Z08 isn't supposed to exist. The cabin was sealed years ago, after the Delphi incident. I searched for anything I could find about that. Eventually, I stumbled on a maritime blog post from 2014. The Delphi was another cruise ship owned by the same company. On its second voyage, a passenger disappeared from an interior cabin. Never explained. The room was sealed. Later, it was allegedly repurposed on another ship. Guess what cabin number it had? I can't prove it. I can't say for sure that my brother ended up in a haunted room, or that the cruise line deliberately reassigned him to a place that wasn't supposed to be used. But I know he went into that elevator. I know he descended to a floor that doesn't exist. I know he sent that video. And I know he never came back. They'll tell you cruise ships are safe, that disappearances are rare, but the ocean hides everything, and some doors once opened don't close again. So if you ever check into a cruise and the receptionist smiles a little too wide while saying, "We've upgraded you to a quiet room just below main level," ask for another, or better yet, don't board at all. James Harper and his wife Ellen had never taken a cruise before. 37 years of marriage, 2 grown kids, and they'd barely ever left the state. But retirement came, and with it, a gift from their children. A 10-day voyage on the Sunrise Majesty, a luxury cruise ship doing a circuit of the Caribbean. Ocean views, all-inclusive meals, island excursions, dancing under the stars. It was something Ellen had always wanted. James, less so. He wasn't a fan of crowds or the ocean, but for her, he agreed. They boarded the ship in Miami with smiles on their faces. James took a selfie of them both, sun behind them, sunglasses on, Ellen laughing as she adjusted her wide-brimmed hat. He sent the picture to their daughter with the caption, "Your mom's already found the dessert table." For the first 2 days, everything was perfect. Ellen did feel a little seasick at first, but Dramamine and sleep helped. By the 3rd day, they were walking the decks, holding hands and making corny jokes about finding the shuffleboard court before the old people got it. That night, they had dinner at the ship's upscale restaurant. Lobster, steak, candlelight, and even danced to a live jazz band playing old favorites from the 70s. She disappeared the next night. James told me later that it was around 11:30 p.m. They'd just gotten back from watching some live show in the main theater. Ellen had said she was restless and wanted some fresh air before bed. She kissed him on the cheek and said, "I'll just take a short walk. You go ahead and brush your teeth. I'll be there in a few minutes." That was the last time he saw her. At first, James assumed she'd gotten distracted. Maybe she stopped to talk to someone or got lost looking for their cabin. But when 30 minutes passed, then an hour, he started to panic. He searched the promenade deck himself, asking passing guests and even a crew member if they'd seen a woman in a green shawl. No one had. He finally went to the guest services desk. They called security. The search turned up nothing. By 2 a.m., the announcement was made to the ship's internal security. Missing person, female, mid-60s, last seen on deck 7, starboard promenade. James watched as uniformed staff searched the deck, shining flashlights overboard and checking the empty chairs. The next morning, the captain made a public announcement. A guest had gone missing overnight. The ship paused its course, turned back, and retraced a portion of its route while the Coast Guard was contacted. Helicopters flew over the water. Lifeboats were deployed for a brief shoreline scan. They never found Ellen. The official report said she likely fell overboard. Maybe she'd leaned on the railing, maybe a sudden gust of wind or a moment of dizziness. It was tragic, but, according to the cruise line, not unheard of. But James couldn't accept it. Not because of grief, although that was there, but because the story didn't make sense. The security footage the company later showed him, after some persistence, only made things worse. Ellen could be seen walking along the promenade, stopping briefly near the rail, looking out at the dark water. And then, the feed glitched, just for 3 seconds. When the image returned, she was gone. No sign of her walking away, no sign of her going overboard. She just wasn't there anymore. The glitch, they claimed, was a standard transmission error, common on older parts of the deck. But James wasn't a fool. 3 seconds. Exactly 3. And it was the only glitch in that entire recording. When he pointed this out, the cruise line representative frowned sympathetically and said, "We understand how hard this must be." That was it. Case closed. Back home, James fell apart. His kids tried to help. Friends brought food. But he wasn't interested in comfort. He kept printing screenshots of that security footage, marking the timestamps with a red pen, staring at them late into the night. He contacted maritime investigators, posted on cruise forums, wrote letters to journalists. No one followed up. The official story was too clean. 3 months later, he got a message on Reddit from a man claiming to be a former cruise ship steward. The message was short. "She's not the first. Check incident logs for 2015 and 2019. Same ship, same deck." James dug. Public records were vague, but he eventually found references to 2 other disappearances. A woman in her early 30s, traveling alone, who vanished near cabin 7224, and a teenage boy who disappeared while walking the promenade at night. Both listed as probable overboard incidents, both without witnesses, and both from deck 7, starboard side. The reports even mentioned security footage with partial data loss. James booked another trip on the Sunrise Majesty. Same route, same time of year, same cabin. He even requested it specifically, and no one at the cruise line questioned him. When he boarded, he brought very little: a change of clothes, a disposable camera, and Ellen's scarf. He didn't tell his kids where he was going. "I only knew because he called me, not to explain, but just to say, if I come back with nothing, then I'll let it go." I don't think he really believed that. He kept a journal on that trip. I have it now. The first few days were benign. He described the meals, the guests, the weather. He said the staff were courteous, but strangely quiet. A few even looked at him with recognition, but none said a word. On the 4th night, just after 11 p.m., he walked the promenade. He stood exactly where Ellen had last been seen, holding her scarf in his hand. He wrote that the wind died suddenly. The air got heavy. The usual sounds, footsteps, muffled music from the upper deck, just stopped. And then he heard her voice. He swore it was her. She said, "You left the door open, Jamie." He turned around. No one. But the scarf in his hand was wet. He said it smelled like salt water, and yet the air around him was dry. When he got back to his cabin, something was off. His toothbrush had been moved. The edge of the bed, the one Ellen used to sleep on, was wrinkled like someone had sat there. He took a photo of the promenade before leaving. The disposable camera was old, but he wanted to have something that couldn't be glitched. It was the only picture he took on the entire trip. When he developed the roll back home, there was nothing unusual, except for that one photo, a blurry shot of the promenade at night. In the corner, barely visible, was the silhouette of a woman standing by the railing. Her face was turned, her hair blowing, one hand extended toward the ocean. The resolution was poor. No one could say for sure who it was, but James said Ellen had been wearing that exact dress the night she vanished. He mailed me the photo with a note. Look closer at the feet. No shadow, no reflection. I did. He was right. Everything else, the railing, the floor, even a trash bin further down the deck, had clear shadows in the ship's soft deck lighting. But the figure? Nothing. The light just seemed to pass through her. James never took another cruise. He doesn't talk about the ocean anymore. The photo sits in a locked drawer in his bedroom. He told his daughter it got lost in the move. One time over coffee, I asked him directly, "Do you think she's dead?" He looked at me for a long time and said, "No, I think she's somewhere else," like the ship didn't want to let go. I don't know what he meant, and I don't know if I believe in ghosts or whatever this would be classified as. But I do know James. He's not a man who invents stories. And he didn't go looking for the weird. It found him. The Sunrise Majesty is still in service, still runs the same route. I checked their website recently. Looks like they've remodeled the promenade deck, smoothed over the deck numbers, reconfigured the cameras. There's even a new light installation that enhances visibility and guest safety. But nothing ever said they changed the railing. If you ever find yourself walking alone on a cruise ship at night and the air suddenly grows still and the sea goes unnaturally quiet, just keep walking. Don't stop. Don't look over the edge. And if you hear someone call your name in the dark, even if it's someone you know, someone you love, don't turn around. I used to work on cruise ships. Not anymore. I don't really talk about why I left, because people either don't believe me or they laugh. But you wanted something real, right? Something that hasn't been polished and turned into a ghost story for clicks? Fine. Here it is. Just don't ask me to say the room number out loud. Back in 2018, I was a junior steward on the Valencia Dream, a mid-sized luxury liner that ran week-long Mediterranean trips out of Barcelona. I'd been on 2 other ships before that, both smaller, and I liked the work. Decent money, food was paid for, and you got to meet interesting people. Some great, some horrible, like anywhere. But the Valencia Dream was different. The crew called it cursed behind closed doors. Bad luck ship, they'd say. Not openly, but in whispers over staff meals or in the crew bar late at night. I thought it was just jokes at first. Every ship has its stories. But then came 1112. Cabin 1112 was on deck 11 midship starboard side. It looked like any other interior cabin. Queen bed, flat screen TV, little desk with a mirror, tiny bathroom with terrible water pressure. You'd never know it was different from the outside. The hallway looked clean. Carpet wasn't worn. Nothing creaked. But 1112 hadn't had a guest in over a year. That's not unusual for a cabin that needs repairs. But this one was listed as closed by request of management. No explanation. The computer still had it in the system. You could assign it manually, but no one did, until the new guy came. There's always a new guy. Fresh out of training, eager to prove himself, doesn't know which people to avoid or which doors to leave shut. This one was named Mateo, Colombian, maybe 22. Bright smile, fast learner, good with guests. He was assigned to my cleaning team about 3 weeks into a cruise cycle. On his first full day, he showed up early, took notes, asked the right questions. I liked him. He reminded me of me when I started. But then he asked about the forgotten room. I didn't even know what he meant at first. He said, There's a room that shows up in the system, but I never see anyone cleaning it. Cabin 1112? I told him not to worry about it, that sometimes rooms are offline for months while waiting for spare parts. That was true. Sometimes. He looked confused. But it's not listed as offline. It just says, hold, internal. I shrugged. That's management stuff. Stay out of it. He didn't. A few days later, I found him at lunch talking to one of the receptionists, asking if guests were ever put in 1112. The receptionist gave him a weird look and just shook her head. He looked at me across the table. So why is it still active in the system? I was done with the conversation. I told him again. Just leave it. Some rooms weren't meant to be used anymore. Maybe there was a lawsuit. Maybe someone died in there. Maybe it was just a glitch that no one bothered to fix. Ships are like that. Half floating city, half forgotten warehouse. That should have been the end of it. But then someone checked in. We were docked in Naples when the call came from the front desk. A woman in her late 60s was claiming her reservation was incorrect. She showed them a printed confirmation. Cabin 1112 specifically. The desk tried to reassign her, but she insisted. Said her daughter had booked it for her birthday and that 1112 was special to her. She wouldn't explain why. Eventually, a supervisor caved. It was just one night. What could go wrong? Matteo got the cleaning assignment. I remember seeing his name next to 1112 on the next day's schedule and feeling sick to my stomach. I asked him not to go. I told him I'd take the hit for skipping it. He just laughed. You're superstitious, huh? He went in around 9 a.m. Housekeeping usually hits the cabins after breakfast, when guests are off the ship. By 9:30, he hadn't returned. By 10 in house, he started looking for him. I found his cart parked outside 1112. The door was ajar. That wasn't unusual. We prop it open while we clean. But what was strange was how still everything was. I knocked. No answer. I stepped inside. The room was cold. Like not air-conditioned cold. Damp cold. The kind you feel in basements or caves. The kind that settles into your bones. The bed was unmade. Towels on the floor. But no Matteo. Matteo! I called. Silence. I checked the bathroom. Empty. Under the bed. Nothing. Closet. Nothing. Then I saw his radio sitting on the desk. Still turned on. Battery half full. That wasn't normal. We kept those on us at all times. If management saw you without it, you got written up. I stepped back out into the hallway, called his name again. A few guests passed by. One of them, a man in a Hawaiian shirt, stopped and said, "Are you looking for the cleaner? I saw him go into that room like half an hour ago." That made it worse. He hadn't come out. I called security. They searched the whole deck, then the deck above, then below. We checked the cameras. There was footage of him entering 1112, none of him leaving. The hallway camera glitched between 9:26 and 9:29, 3 full minutes of static. Sound familiar? Security asked questions. I gave them what I knew. The woman staying in the room was questioned, but she claimed she'd left early and didn't see anyone. Her door log backed her up. She swiped out at 8:45 a.m. and didn't return until afternoon. The official report was inconclusive. Crew member left work area without notice. That's what they wrote. They docked his pay and shipped his belongings home. But here's the thing. 2 days later, his radio turned back on. It pinged the internal system at 3:12 a.m. No one had touched it. It was still logged as being in the lost found. And when they checked the log, it had recorded something. 12 seconds of audio. I was there when they played it. Most of it was static, but right at the end, a voice whispered, "Still waiting for my tea." Those were the words Matteo used to joke with the guests. Every time he knocked on a door, he'd say, "Housekeeping, bringing your tea." We stopped assigning that room after that. Again. But guests kept asking for it. Not often, once every couple months. Always older women, always alone, always insisting. Some claimed they'd stayed there before, some said they had no preference, but when offered 1112, they'd say, yes, that one. And sometimes, not always, but often enough, something would happen. Lights flickering, phones ringing with no one on the other end, towels arranged in odd shapes. One time, a guest swore she woke up and saw a man standing at the foot of her bed, soaking wet. When she turned on the light, no one was there. The carpet was dry, but the hem of the bedspread was damp. The ship went through a partial remodel in 2020. New carpets, new locks, new booking software. A lot of the old cabins got renumbered, but not 1112. That room kept its number. When I quit, I asked one of the managers, someone I trusted, if they knew what the deal was. He hesitated, then told me this. Years ago, when the ship was still new, a steward had a heart attack in that room, mid-clean, died before they found him. No one noticed for hours. They say he'd been asking for help over the radio, but no one answered. The ship's internal logs showed he made 3 calls, all to the same number. Thing is, cabin phones aren't set up to receive external calls, especially not from the crew's radio system. So how did those calls go through? They tried to cover it up, said it was a software error, but from that moment on, the room was off. People said it smelled like salt, even after they scrubbed it. Some said you could hear knocking from inside, even when it was empty. I asked if the steward had a name. The manager looked uncomfortable and said, I think it was Mateo. I reminded him. Mateo was my trainee from 2018. He blinked. No, this happened in 2012. I've never returned to ships after that. Every once in a while, I still get emails from old coworkers. Someone finds a towel folded wrong in 1112. Someone hears footsteps when the room is supposed to be empty. The usual stories. But a few months ago, I got a message from a former receptionist. She said a woman called the booking office directly, an older woman with a soft, distant voice, and requested cabin 1112 for an upcoming cruise. Said she'd been there before and wanted the same housekeeper. When the agent asked for a name, the woman just said, I think he was called Mateo. He always brought my tea. Then the line disconnected. No number, no booking, just static. If you ever end up on the Valencia Dream, or any ship really, and they offer you a last-minute upgrade, check the room number. If it's 1112, don't take it. And if you're already inside and the phone rings, no matter how late it is, no matter how curious you are, don't answer.